Washington is preventing Britain from helping Ukraine, but enabling Russia to attack Ukraine. No way, you say. Yes, way. Here's the lay of it.
Where we lay our scene.
The United Kingdom for months has wanted to let Ukraine use Britain's elite, precise, and scary Storm Shadow missiles to stop Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities. But the Biden White House says no.
We cannot. We must not.
Wait a second. How can Washington restrict Whitehall on British-made weapons? Because the Storm Shadows contain some American-made components, giving Washington the final say on how they are used. Here's the weird thing. Many of the missiles that Russia sends to Ukraine every day contain American-made components. The USA is therefore helping Russia attack Ukraine while pretending to be on the side of freedom.
As long as it takes.
Do you see what's happening? This is the story of Ukrainians, free people, and Europeans, scared people, against political and corporate tyrants from Moscow to Tehran to Beijing to New Delhi, and yeah, even to Washington. So here it is. Washington is preventing Britain from helping Ukraine, but enabling Russia to attack Ukraine.
I will be prepared to be much stronger, and the president should be prepared for that.
Ukraine is everything that Americans want, and Russia and other tyrants are trying to erase it, while weak-willed Western leaders hold Ukraine back.
As long as it takes.
And freedom-seeking people miss the truth. What is Ukraine? It's accessible and affordable localized health care. It's natural and affordable food everywhere.
We want freedom of speech.
It's insane levels of free speech. It's crowded churches on a Sunday. It's a society that is tolerant and traditional, with no major culture wars, only a real war. It's a country where no one likes Hamas. It's clean cities with no serious crime. Kids walk to school on their own. The only danger: Russian missiles and Iranian drones falling from the sky. And now also North Korean soldiers on the ground. It's the Texas of Europe, where people grab guns to protect faith, family, freedom. American expats in Ukraine all says that this country is the place so many Americans are dreaming of. But you better hurry, because Russia, with support from Iran, China, India, and North Korea, is working to erase free Ukraine. And guess what? Washington is helping them by refusing to let Ukraine punch back.
We cannot. We must not.
Вітання з міста Шарлотт, Північна Кароліна. Ми в турі зараз з культурним десантом і відвідали родину Джо Лінзлі, американського журналіста, який з 2022 року щодня виходить на американському радіо, чикагському радіо WGN, для того, щоб більше розповісти американцям про боротьбу українців за свободу, за світову демократію, для того, щоб зруйнувати певні стереотипи і підняти зацікавленість американців у тому, що відбувається в Україні. Тому підтримайте його. Це важливо, це важлива частина діалогу між нами та американцями. Дякую, Джо, за те, що ти робиш.
The West is asleep, even as North Korean soldiers are fighting against freedom on European soil. Yup, you heard that right. North Korean soldiers are fighting on European soil. The West is asleep, but some are waking up. The German opposition leader Friedrich Merz has issued a powerful proposal. Let's give Russia 24 hours to stop bombing Ukraine. If Moscow doesn't comply, he said, we should immediately give Ukraine all the necessary weapons, including Taurus, and lift all restrictions on their use. Meanwhile, Zelensky boldly declares what many Ukrainians have been saying. Either Ukraine is in NATO, or Ukraine is going to have to get its own nukes. It all depends on if the West awakes in time. Russia. Even when Ukraine scores a touchdown, it's like the ref called it back for offsides.
Oh, he doesn't need F-16s now.
The cheers from the West? Barely a whisper now. Instead, American magazines put anti-Ukraine Russians on their covers. In these darkest of days, what happened to all the fancy actors and politicians who waved the Ukrainian flag? Crickets. Every time Ukraine opens a window, the White House slams it shut.
We cannot.
How can Ukrainians ever win with such a policy?
We are going to die!
As we look toward the U.S. presidential election, it's not enough to hope that Harris will be better for Ukraine. To win, we must do the impossible. Convince those close to Trump and Harris, whoever will win, that standing for Ukraine is good for them. Because as it stands, whether with nice words from Kamala or sad words from Trump,
Ukraine is gone. It's not.
Frankly, Ukrainians are going to die. This war is a test of whether free people can withstand not just the run-of-the-mill tear gas endured by protesters worldwide, but rather daily missile and drone attacks from an evil empire fueled, in part, by American corporate greed. Good feelings are not enough.
As long as it takes.
Weapons and, crucially, a genuine love for freedom are required. If you say this is impossible, let us tell you what is even more impossible. Refusing to submit to tyranny, even in the face of ballistic missiles. And for 2.5 years, Ukrainians have stood in the face of this impossibility, but the window is closing.
We are going to die!
Just as much.
Have you heard about the war in Europe? It's a big one.
Ukraine is a country in Europe.
While Ukrainians stand for freedom, Biden and Harris don't seem to give a damn. Don't believe us? Well, check this out. Kamala Harris will answer questions about her favorite Doritos.
Or my Doritos.
Oh, what flavor?
Nacho.
That would have been a perfect moment to denounce Doritos' parent company, Pepsi, which, thanks to the sloppy sanctions of Biden-Harris, still profits in Russia. But instead, Kamala just smiles about the snacks that support the Kremlin. And Joe Biden promotes Oreos, owned by Mondelez, which continues to reap profits in Russia. The guy who issued the sanctions snacks on a product that easily flouts the sanctions. Do they care? Not only will they not let Ukraine strike back,
We cannot. We must not.
they don't even take their own sanctions seriously. When you hear Biden-Harris saying they're tough on Russia,
Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country.
just remember all these words are double stuffed with fluff. Meanwhile, Moscow, fueled by American companies, sends hellfire on people who refuse to submit to tyranny.
Ёб твою мать!
Putin started this war not because he is afraid of NATO. Putin started this war because he is afraid of freedom. Because after collapse of authoritarian regime in Ukraine, we people in Ukraine got our chance for the quick democratic transition. We got our chance to build a country where the rights of everybody are protected, government is accountable, judiciary is independent, and police do not beat students who are peacefully demonstrating. And in order to stop us on this way, Russia invaded. Russia occupied Crimea, part of Luhansk and Donetsk regions, and 2 years ago extended this war to the large-scale invasion. Because, once again, Putin is not afraid of NATO. Putin is afraid of the idea of freedom, which came closer to Russian borders.
Just one question for Kamala Harris.
Can I ask you a question?
The Biden administration has forbidden Ukraine from using U.S. and even British weapons to attack military targets in Russia.
We cannot. We must not.
This has allowed Putin free rein to use glide bombs to attack civilian targets inside Ukraine. Ukraine finds breakthroughs where it can, for example, in Kursk and in the Black Sea. But as long as Ukraine can't precisely strike the sources of Russian attacks, Russia can keep pounding Ukrainians until the freedom of Ukraine is lost. If Washington continues to refuse to let Ukraine strike back, how can Ukraine win? Because if you won't let Ukraine strike back, your position sounds awfully close to Trump's.
This is a war that has to end, and we're going to get that war ended.
Forcing Ukraine into some sort of negotiation. Is this what you want?
I've told the truth. I didn't come to fool you.
Questions for Donald Trump. You say all Ukrainian cities are completely destroyed.
You can never replace those cities and towns.
Well, yes, some small cities are. But against all odds, the main Ukrainian cities are still alive and free. In 2022, the world thought Russia would take Kiev. And in 2024, even Kharkiv, just 30 miles from Russia, despite Moscow attacks, is still full of life. And crucially, freedom. Why do you refuse to see this?
Ukraine is gone.
Why do you refuse to believe that a well-armed freedom can actually stop tyranny? Why do you talk about freedom but then put Ukrainians, who actually fight for it, in a bad light? Do you realize that Ukrainians do not want to surrender? That freedom is more important to them than anything? We invite you to follow our channel, the only American show reporting live from Ukraine every day.